You are 18 years old. Today you leave home. Maybe forever. The road ahead is long, and Rome does not care if you are ready. A shield in your hand, armor on your chest, weight on your back, fear in your stomach. This is how many Roman soldiers began their new lives, not with glory, but with burden. Many joined because they needed money. Others wanted food, respect, or the chance to rise above poverty. Some simply had no better path. Rome promised opportunity, but demanded everything in return. The moment you joined, your time belonged to the army. Your future belonged to the empire. Service could last 20 years or more. That meant giving your youth to discipline, danger, and distance from home. Training began immediately. Recruits marched for miles, carrying heavy equipment through rain, heat, mud, and cold. If they slowed down, they were pushed harder. If they complained, no one cared. Rome wanted endurance. Wooden swords heavier than real weapons were used for practice. Heavy shields built strength. Drills were repeated endlessly until movement became instinct. Step forward, raise shield, strike, hold formation, again and again until the body obeyed without thought. Rome understood that courage could fail in battle, but discipline could survive fear. A Roman soldier was expected to move as part of a machine. One weak man could open a gap. One gap could destroy a line. One broken line could lose a battle. So weakness was corrected early, harshly. Many recruits arrived dreaming of gold and fame. They imagined cheers, victory, and stories told about them for generations. Instead, they found sweat, blisters, sleepless nights, shouted orders, and officers demanding more, always more. The Roman army did not care about comfort. It cared about usefulness. If you could carry weight, obey commands, and endure pain, you had value. If not, Rome would harden you until you did. And if you survived training, your true hardship had only begun. Because Roman soldiers were not only fighters, they were builders, laborers, guards, engineers, and workers of empire. At the end of a brutal march, when most men would collapse, Roman soldiers dug trenches, raised walls, cut timber, repaired roads, moved stone, built camps, and then stood watch through the night. Then, before sunrise, they marched again. There were no easy days. Even victory could mean more work. Even survival meant more orders. Rome expanded because its soldiers could do what many others refused to do. Keep moving while tired. Keep working while hungry. Keep obeying while miserable. Every mile of empire was paid for by the men carrying its weight. Camp life was rarely glorious. Most Roman soldiers spent far more time waiting than fighting. Waiting for orders, waiting for supplies, waiting for the next march, waiting for war. Food was basic: bread, grain, porridge, olives, and salted meat when available. Sometimes enough, sometimes not. Water was not always clean. Disease moved through camps faster than any enemy. Fever, infection, stomach sickness, wounds that never healed properly. Many men suffered without ever stepping onto a battlefield. Weather could be another enemy. Winter froze hands and feet. Summer burned skin and drained strength. Rain turned camps into mud. Insects spread misery. Sleep was often short and broken. A soldier might finish a long day of labor only to stand guard through the night. Rome demanded readiness at all times. Punishment helped maintain that readiness. Orders were strict. Discipline was harsh. Sleeping while on watch could bring severe consequences, because one careless guard could doom an entire camp. Theft from fellow soldiers was hated. Desertion brought disgrace. Cowardice could stain a man's name forever. Rome rewarded loyalty, but it also ruled through fear. One of the darkest punishments remembered in history was decimation. Rare, but terrifying. In extreme cases, 1 in 10 men from a disgraced unit could be chosen by lot and killed by their own comrades. The lesson was simple: fail badly enough, and Rome itself could become your enemy. So soldiers learned quickly. Hold the line, follow orders, do your duty. Battle itself was horror enough. Horns sounded across the field. Officers shouted commands. Dust filled the air. Arrows fell from the sky. Men prayed, trembled, and tried not to show fear. Then came impact, shield against shield, wood cracking, metal striking metal, steel cutting flesh, friends falling beside you, mud mixed with blood. Ancient battle was close, brutal, and personal. There were no radios, no helicopters, no quick rescue, no modern medicine. If wounded badly, death could be slow. If the line broke, panic could become slaughter. Yet Rome kept winning because its soldiers were trained to endure chaos, to obey while exhausted, to stand while others ran. They were not fearless men. They were disciplined men. And discipline, again and again, changed the fate of battle. Rome did not always win. It suffered defeats, disasters, ambushes, and humiliations. Entire armies were lost in some campaigns. But Rome had something many enemies lacked. It could recover. It could rebuild. It could raise new forces, gather supplies, repair roads, and return stronger than before. That persistence made Rome dangerous. Defeating one Roman army did not mean defeating Rome. Another could appear months later, marching down the same road with new banners and fresh determination. Roman organization was one of its greatest weapons. Roads moved troops quickly. Camps protected armies on campaign. Engineers built bridges, walls, and siege works. Officers enforced structure. Supply systems fed men across long distances. While enemies often relied on courage alone, Rome combined courage with planning. But all of that power still depended on ordinary soldiers. Men carrying packs, men digging trenches, men standing watch in freezing darkness, men bleeding in battle, men burying friends. Victory came at a price. Years stolen, bodies damaged, scars hidden under armor, memories carried in silence. Yet many still believed it was worth it, because if you survived, rewards could be real. Wages saved over years of service, loot from successful campaigns, land grants in some eras, pensions in later periods, and for many auxiliary soldiers, Roman citizenship. That reward could change not only a man's life, but the future of his children. A poor recruit could finish service with rights, status, and respect. Veterans often returned home transformed, not as boys, but as proven men. Some bought land, some started families, some became leaders in their towns, some wore their scars with pride, others carried silence instead. Because glory looked different from the outside, people saw medals, titles, and honor. They did not see hunger, punishment, fear before battle, screams after it began, or graves left behind in foreign lands. When people think of Rome, they imagine emperors, marble cities, gold, and power. But empires are not built by statues. They are built by ordinary men asked to endure the unbearable. Step after step, road after road, battle after battle, order after order. Behind every wall stood a soldier. Behind every banner stood a soldier. Usually tired, usually hungry, usually afraid, and still standing. The Roman soldier lived between two worlds. One was the promise of honor. The other was the reality of hardship. To the public, he represented strength, victory, and discipline. To himself, he often represented exhaustion. Every campaign began with movement, long roads, heavy loads, endless marching, armor-rubbed skin raw, sandals wore thin, rain-soaked clothing, heat-drained energy. Yet the column continued forward. Camps were built at the end of marches because Rome believed protection could not wait until morning. Trenches were dug, stakes placed, walls raised, guards assigned. Only then could men rest, and even then rest was uncertain. Any alarm in the night meant grabbing weapons and forming ranks immediately. Roman soldiers learned to sleep lightly. They learned to eat quickly. They learned to obey instantly. In battle, trust mattered. A man depended on the shield beside him. If one soldier fled, others could die. If one held firm, courage could spread. Brotherhood formed through shared suffering. Men who had marched together for years often knew each other better than family. They had seen fear in each other's eyes and still held the line. That bond helped armies survive what training alone could not. But even veterans were human. They missed home. They feared death. They mourned friends. They wondered whether reward would ever come. Some reached old age with land and status. Others never reached tomorrow. Rome celebrated victory with triumphs and monuments. But monuments do not tell the full story. They do not show frozen nights on distant frontiers. They do not show infected wounds or empty stomachs. They do not show letters never answered or sons who grew up without fathers. The greatness of Rome was built on discipline, but also on sacrifice. Countless ordinary men carried stones, swords, and burdens so emperors could claim glory. That is why the Roman army became legendary. Not because its soldiers felt no fear, but because they kept going despite fear. Not because life was easy, but because hardship was expected. Not because reward was guaranteed, but because hope was enough to keep many marching. The Roman army became one of history's greatest forces, but for the men inside it, it was a brutal road to honor.